The doctor just grabbed me by my foot. He's like, I'm sorry, I don't think you'll ever walk again. Everything just came crashing down.
It sounds like you've had 20 lifetimes already. It's got to be like the most adversity anybody can go through. So it's a crazy story.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
Disclaimer: this episode contains discussions of trauma, addiction, suicide, and recovery. Listener discretion is advised.
What is up, everybody? I am Jason Trost, the host of the Business of Betting podcast. I am calling in from very hot London, and we have a special guest today, Tony Trzeciak. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Who's a man about town. He's got one of the most interesting, deep, crazy personal stories I've ever heard, and I'm very excited to get into it. So thanks for joining us, Tony.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason.
So why don't you kick off? I mean, this is ostensibly a sports betting podcast, and you do business and sports betting. Why don't we kick off by how did you get into sports betting?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, an angel investor at heart. You know, I like to network and connect with people. And because I'm paralyzed, you know, I did some due diligence on AI about 6 years ago and where it was going. And somebody being paralyzed, I have a hard time doing a lot of simple tasks, right? I wanted to find ways to make it simpler or easier to navigate large amounts of data so I can make better informed decisions. You know, that's basically why I got involved in it. And I'm excited about the future of technology and AI, but obviously there's some concerns with all of that as well. But that's kind of why, because trying to make my life easier, AI and technology makes my life easier.
So 6 years ago, AI was pretty, I don't know what the right word is. It's a lot different than today. Like the tools just like month to month are going so much faster and faster. And I imagine that the tools you were using 6 years ago weren't that great. Like what were you doing 6 years ago in sports betting with AI?
So I didn't use anything for sports betting. Actually, how it started was with financial data. I woke up from a surgery, died on the surgery table, came back. I was having blood clot surgery. Both my legs are clotted and I had clots in my heart and everything like that. I had a substantial amount of money in the stock market. And when I woke up from surgery, I looked at my phone was right there and I picked up my phone and I saw the market had dropped substantially. So when you have a large amount of money and you see, your portfolio down 10%, 15% in just a couple of days from the last you looked, I picked up my phone. Hey, Siri, what happened to the stock market today? And Siri replied, I can't give you stock tips. I don't have access to that information. I was kind of like, that's weird. You can answer all these other questions, but I'm just asking fundamentally, why did the market go from point A to point B? And it couldn't give me that answer. And that's when I started really deep diving into generative AI, natural language, and things like that. Because I was a retail trader, I was in a community full of other retail traders, moms, dads who are just trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents type of thing, right? So we're aggressively trading options and things like that. And I noticed that there's crumbs in the data, like there's devils in the details, right? Was the signal and the noise. And I was finding these patterns and then I just started following the same patterns, like a set base of criteria. And I noticed that, 70% of the time when this criteria would happen, options or stocks would go up. And I started thinking, how can I simplify this process? Because there's billions of data points. There's financial market data that people are trading. There's so much information coming in. The human mind can't process that information, but AI can. So a good friend of mine, Chris Hanzi, and Michael De Los Santos, we were the three amigos. We're always day trading and stuff like that. I was like, man, I really wish there was a way that I could simplify this process. And he's like, well, funny story. My cousin's married to an individual called Tony Trzeciak. He's the CEO of a company called Chata.ai, CHATA.ai. He might find your approach appealing and we might be able to build something with that. So I met Kelly. I kind of just, rolled him through everything that I look for. He's like, this is really interesting and we can definitely build signals around this or build alerts around this. So I built a proof of concept around financial market data. And then I started showcasing these capabilities to people who've been in the financial industry for decades. And I met an individual, Tim Giannopoulos. He's a lawyer. He was also the former CEO of a company called Trading Technologies, helped it through a strategic sell. I went to Chicago. I introduced myself to him, introduced him to the products that I built, blew him away. Then through him and other individuals, I met other people. Another partner, mentor of mine, Nick Howard. He's the CEO of Bantex Technologies. He came right up to me. He's like, Tony, like, this is amazing. He's like, but you're going about it all wrong. So they kind of took me under their wings and mentored me and helped guide me to take the product. And then, we found partnerships and everything like that. We're actually about to release these products over the next couple months, which I'm really excited about. And that's then led to us to sports. So I'm a diehard Eagles fan, so I have to get this out of the way. Go Birds, 2-time Super Bowl champs. I had to get that out. I had to get that one out.
There's only been 50 Super Bowls or something.
It's okay, but we got 2 of those. Anyways, that's what led me down to sports. So I've been very blessed with the people that I've been able to meet. But I feel like because I'm true to myself and my story, people, I just feel like people just radiate around me, and it's just the way I carry myself and how I talk to people. People are always interested in the things that I'm getting involved with. So when the financial product got taken over, obviously I don't want to sit on my hands. I sit down all day. I have to be proactive. And I was like, you know what? With sports, this would be really interesting if we could find some signal in the noise. And there's a lot of signal in the noise when you're talking about sports data. So then again, me and Kelly Trzeciak from Chatham, we kind of sat down together. He's from Calgary. I'm from Philly. We met in Chicago for a couple meetings with Nick and Tim. We kind of looked at each other like, look, like we did it with finance. Let's do it with sports. And that's kind of what led us down this path. And, I'm really excited about the future about this. And, we could cover on some more of what we're doing in a little bit.
So I'd love to get to your personal story in a little bit. So let's park that, because your personal story, to be honest, is one of the most amazing personal stories I've ever heard. So I definitely want to get to that. But talk me through, like, what is this algorithm that you built? Like, what skills did you have? Are you self-taught? Like, did you go to university for this? Because you're a military guy. Like, how did you get up to speed to work with this? Because I'm a technologist. I see computer programmers that struggle with some of this stuff. So like, what did you build, and how did you get the skills to build it?
I don't have the skill set, right? But what my skill set is, actually, here's a great example. We all have a superpower, right? Tim Giannopoulos always said this to me. He's like, one thing that you guys is resilience and grit. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to be in the front lines. I'm a Marine. I was in the infantry. I just like to be in the front. But I like to surround myself with as the smartest people that I can surround myself with, and then learn from them. I just sit back, I roll back, and I'm like a sponge. I soak in all that information. And since I'm paralyzed, what's the greatest weapon I have is my mind. And it's something that I never truly applied myself as a young adult and a kid because of the hardships that I went through. But being in a wheelchair, I had to focus on something. All my energy, all my time, I had to focus on something. So I just watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I could soak in knowledge. But then it's like, again, it's not what it's who at the end of the day. You can have all the skill sets in the world, but without the right person to push you through the door, I guess is the easy way to say it, or guide you or navigate you or give you an introduction, all you have at the end of the day is an idea. And so again, like I'm not a technologist. I'm not an AI expert. I surround myself with those individuals and I ask questions. And, I'm not afraid to ask a question. Even if it sounds as dumb as it is, I'm not afraid to ask the stupid questions. I mean, like they say, Marines eat crayons. So I'm not an expert, but what I am an expert at is connecting with individuals. And that's how I got to where I am today.
If I'm understanding correctly, you were a day trader. You had this revelation after a near-death experience, which is kind of, I think most people don't think about stock trading after a near-death experience, but you're a little bit different than everybody else. And so then you're like, there's got to be a better way to get this information that led you down this path to work with this company that kind of has helped you productize this idea that you came up with. And then down the road, you figured out a way to apply this to sports betting. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that 100%. I mean, basically, you can take any data and make it queryable utilizing natural language, right? So, Chata, I'm very blessed that they believed in my vision as I believed in their vision, as I invested in them early on, and they're growing exponentially. So as a shareholder, I'm excited about that. But, there is a lot of hallucinations with AI, and I hear it every day, AI hallucinations and the cost of LLMs and things like that. And why I'm excited is because what separates Chata from the rest of the pack, and it's because they're CPU inference and not powered by GPU. So the cost to operate these language models is literally less than like 0.2% of the cost of an LLM. So when you're talking that scale, it's a no-brainer, right? Because as API costs, data costs, LLM costs go up, Chata stays the same. And that's the big thing.
So in the sports betting context, do you take this algorithm and give the IP to a betting syndicate and have somebody trade it? Or how are you monetizing this?
We are preparing to go to market soon.
So it's still in testing.
We've actually tested the model for over a year, and it's very efficient. Our go-to-market strategy is, again, we're going to provide the tools and pickaxes for you to mine the gold. So basically the idea here is to have a white label B2B solution where we give you these tools for your end users to then query and set defined alerts on things that they're looking for. So, you're gaining a decisive competitive edge, you're elevating player engagement and loyalty. And again, you're basically getting real-time game analytics. So for instance, for me, Eagles fan here, let me get this out of the way again. What's Jalen Hurts' average passing yards on the road against the Giants? Okay, there's that answer. Okay. But that's the thing. Everybody's extremely busy with work, family, and their everyday lives. My whole process with this when I was talking to Kelly is we wanted to give something to the people that they can access data that they need at their fingertips that's easily understandable, powered through natural language, right? So we can define those alerts for you. You can define those alerts for yourself. What are you looking for? What signals are you looking for that's going to make you click the bet button? We're not a betting company. We're a data analytics company, and we're giving you the ability to analyze any data set to help you make a better informed decision.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's pivot to your personal story because it's fascinating. So why don't you give an overview in your words about your personal background?
Yeah. So I grew up in Philly and I went to school, high school, middle school in Happle Horsham, which is just like 30 minutes outside the city. Early on, childhood wasn't great. When I got a little older, I got myself in trouble for doing something really stupid, petty. I think it was shoplifting or something stupid. I was like 12, 13 years old. And Mark, he is my mom's husband, looked at me, he's like, you're going to be just like your father, right? Because my dad was in and out of jail and, sold drugs, did a lot of bad things. But my dad also was a military veteran, Purple Heart. He's an Army medic. My grandfather was 101st Airborne Bronze Star recipient. So I come from a family of, warriors. My brother was in Iraq, but he dealt with tons of PTSD and TBI. Would get blown up a couple times. I know what that's like. It messes up your head. So a lot of people don't understand him, right? But I do now because of the situations I went through. And when I got older, my mom was ultimately given a decision that she can either take me and my brother and sister and live on her own or stay with her husband. And my mom's husband threw me out in the street. My mom drove her car down the street. It's kind of a touchy subject. I was pretty young. It was snowing and I was just in a FUBU sweatshirt, Tim's and shorts, and it was torrential snowing. And my mom rolled down the window. She's like, Tony, can you get in the car? I want to talk to you. And I was basically like, look, me or your husband? And she rolled up her window, turned her car around and left me there. I was about 16 years old. Life kind of hit me pretty fast. So at that point, I was homeless. I spent the last 2 years plus in high school homeless. Most people didn't know that. I was living out of trash cans, living in laundromats, abandoned apartment buildings. It was rough. I was getting in tons of trouble because I was running the streets, selling drugs, robbing people. I had to do what I had to do to survive. Let's just put it that way. I got in a lot of trouble one day. And ultimately, my cousin Will was like, look, I'm like the only place that you can live at. And if you don't make a decision with your life, you can't stay here. You better go to the recruiter's office and go sign up for the military because you need to get your shit together. I had to one up my grandfather, my dad, and my brother who are all Army. And I was like, I'm going to go join the Marine Corps. I thought they looked best in uniform. That was kind of my decision. So I went to the recruiter's office and I'm like, look, told him what was going on. I'm homeless. I have nothing. I need help. I'll sign right now. I just have to go through a couple more months of high school. That being said, the recruiters felt bad for me that I ended up living with my recruiters for a little bit, living on the recruiter's bench in the recruiter's office, living at their house. They were taking me to school. They made sure I went to school every day. And there was a couple teachers that I like to call out that if it wasn't for them, I definitely would not be here today. Bamford, Milnazic, Cryer, and DeRozier. If you hear this ever, I love you guys, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those teachers. I don't think people give teachers enough respect for the amount of bullshit they deal with those kids every day. But I was one of those that was a major headache in them, but they always believed in me. I went to boot camp. They were all there at my graduation, so that was awesome. Talk a little bit about my military career and then how I got to where I am today. My first deployment was the 22nd MEU. I went all over the world, all over Europe, all over Africa, all over the Middle East.
What does MEU stand for?
It's like the expeditionary. Oh my God, I'm gonna get shit for this from military guys. I don't even remember, but it's like the Marine Expedition something. I don't know, but it's basically a bunch of Marines go on a bunch of boats and we sail around the world and basically QRF or doing training, in Africa, Egypt, Iraq, wherever, like wherever you're needed is basically like, your QRF somewhere. So we were all over the place. And because of that, we were part of that 22nd MEU back in 2010. That's when that devastating earthquake in Haiti had happened. So we ended up getting deployed to Haiti and then doing a humanitarian mission in Haiti, helping all those people. And it was terrible to see tens of thousands of people in a third world country living in tents. My eyes were open. I was like, and this goes back to my childhood. I'm like, shit, I thought I had it bad being homeless. Like, look at these people living in third world countries. And it really put a lot in perspective for me. I'm like, man, like everything that I went through is nothing in comparison to what these people have to live through. Like just to get some water, they're walking miles to get water. It's remarkable. And I'm very grateful, even though I was going through a hardship, that I wasn't as difficult as that. So that really did help put a lot of things in perspective for me. That being said, that's when I ended up meeting my wife, who I've known since she was a kid, and we got married. I started popping babies out. And then my next deployment was in Afghanistan. I went to Afghanistan, got blown up a couple times. We can spend hours talking about what I did over there, but for the sake of time, it was a Musakila patrol base called Mirage. That's in Helmand Providence. I'm in a documentary with my platoon, Ross Kemp, Back to the Front Lines. I think it's part 2. You'll see with the Marines. So you kind of get an idea where we were and what we were doing. A lot of things happened on that deployment, good and bad. Because of that, when I got back stateside, I got blown up bad. I got hurt. My back was shot. When I got back stateside, the Marine Corps was injecting my spine with cortisone to help alleviate the pain and giving me pain meds. And at this time, I'm 6'4", 260 solid. I'm benching 500 pounds. Like, they tell me, it's from weightlifting. I'm like, no, man, I got blown up a couple times. My back's pretty shot from that. And then being on patrol every day for nearly a year does things to your body. So they kept injecting me with cortisone. I EAS'd out of the Marine Corps and I was going to college full time. And
what does EAS stand for?
You get out of the Marine Corps. You get your honorable discharge. And I got to use my GI benefit, my GI Bill, and I went to school. So I was getting paid to go to school utilizing the GI Bill. I was going to school because I wanted to be a history teacher because I love ancient civilizations, Western Civ and things like that. And that's what I wanted to do. And be a gym teacher and yell at kids and have them do push-ups and things like that, run around. But that being said, I was 2 semesters in college and my back pain was just getting worse. So I was going in and out of the hospital every few days. And if you ever had your leg fall asleep, where you get that numbing, tingling feeling through your hands or arms, my whole body started feeling like that. And it was extremely weird. And it was going to a hospital called Onslow Memorial in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I was going in and out, and I was getting no help, just more pain meds. And this goes to, stories that for sake of time, I'll say it, but I was extremely addicted to pharmaceutical drugs, opioids and things like that, because I was just getting them shoved in my face constantly for pain. And then one day, for the sake of the audience, I just trying to be real and transparent. Which the fastest way to get that is to snort an injector or anything like that. So I crushed up a bunch of pills. I snorted a big line of oxycodone and I passed out on the couch. And that would be the last time I ever stood again. I woke up from that and I couldn't move. I felt like the world, gravity was just holding me down and I just couldn't do anything but move my head and start screaming. I was frantically screaming for help. My wife went to a movie with her best friend, Jess, to go see Twilight. I just screamed for help. I eventually lost my voice because I was screaming for a couple hours until my wife finally came home, seeing me frantically trying to move and I couldn't move. Paramedics came, they got me on the stretcher and they took me to Onslow Memorial Hospital. And that's where things really got bad. And They put me on a morphine drip, and I was so heavily sedated, and my paralysis started moving up. It went from my right leg to my left leg, and then started creeping up to the point where I couldn't even talk anymore. And I was frantically crying. I didn't know what to do. I ended up getting helicoptered out of Onslow Memorial and sent to Greenville at ECU. It's Greenville, North Carolina. It's this hospital out there where they had a spinal cord, doctor. I immediately got rushed into spinal surgery. I don't know how long that surgery was. I know it was a long time. When I woke up, I just opened my eyes, I see my wife, I see the doctors, and everybody had that look on their face like, fuck. The doctor just grabbed me by my foot, which I couldn't even feel. He's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't get you any sooner. I don't think you'll ever walk again. And everything just came crashing down. And it's still, to this day, it's hard to express or get the words out on how I felt at that moment. It was, I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I immediately looked to my wife, who was 19 at the time. I said, leave me. You have your whole life ahead of you. I have nothing ahead of me. And she's like, no, I'm going to be right here. I'm going to be right here. And, 15 years later, we're still married. We have 3 kids. That being said, I was then staying at ECU for several weeks, and the VA denied everything. They denied me my disability. The Marine Corps denied any wrongdoing. I got no benefits. I lost everything. I had like $30,000 in the bank. That was gone. Within 8 months, bills, everything, medical expenses, I had no help. And this is where organizations like the Semper Fi Fund, if it wasn't for the Semper Fi Fund, I would not be alive today. I say that wholeheartedly. I would not be alive today if it was not for the Semper Fi Fund. They were basically giving me $4,000 every single month for several years until I won my settlement. I ended up getting a lawyer, and I sued every hospital. I fought the VA. I fought the Marine Corps. I fought everybody, and I won. And to say that you went and took your case to the man and won it and you stuck it to him, not many can say that. And coming from where I came from, being homeless, having nothing, to be frank, it was millions of dollars. I had no idea what to do with that kind of money. No idea. I was scared, honestly, to have that kind of money. Most people my age would go buy fancy cars, fancy house, and then blow it. I was like, how do I take this and ensure if something happens to me that my wife and my children will always be taken care of? Because that's always my priority. As a husband and a man, they're my priority. And I called my uncle Eric, who was very wealthy, and he was the only person I felt like I can trust and will say like, hey, I got awarded this. What should I do? And that's kind of what's, started my path. Now through that, for the sake of time, to save the audience time, I battled depression, suicide. I tried killing myself multiple times, blowing my head off. One of my good friends, Rob, who I got tatted here, he's buried in Arlington. Just to say one instance, I was at my breaking point. My wife called Rob, said, I think Tony's going to blow his head off. He kicked down the door. He ran in the house. He jumped on me. I pulled the trigger, and the bullet just missed my head, skimmed the top of my head, went through the walls of the house. And I cried on his shoulder for hours. I was in a really dark place for a long time. But because of that and everything that I overcame mentally, which I honestly don't believe 99.9% of people could ever overcome, there's a couple people that helped me overcome that because they put things in perspective. Just like when I was homeless growing up and I go to a third world country, it really put in perspective. Like, even though I had that, there's people that have it worse. I met an individual, his name was James Howard. He's paralyzed from the neck down. And he's out there, he's running multiple organizations, Reach Cycles, which is an organization that help disabled kids get, disabled bikes so they can enjoy the freedom of riding a bike. And then he has another one, Veterans Athletes United, where he sponsors or gets donation dollars to veterans who are paralyzed or disabled to get them involved in athletic, things. I was crying one day on the phone. I'm like, I can't even shower. I can't use the bathroom. I'm like, I don't know what to do. He's like, brother, I know what you're going through, because the first couple months, a year I was in a wheelchair, I had to go outside and take a hose and shower. I was like, oh, well, I didn't think of that. Let me go outside and hose myself down because I haven't showered in a while. But it's like people putting things in perspective. And James was like, look, man, he's like, your legs don't work, but your mind does. So use what you got. And that's, again, that goes back to how I got involved with the AI and all that stuff. I had money. I already guaranteed my kids and my family's future by putting most of that away, investing index funds. Shout out to Joe, Chad, Julie, my advisors, love them to death. I ensure that everything that I have, for them in the future. But I also wanted to take a shot on myself. Like Michael Jordan said, I missed how many times, but because of that, I'm a champion. So I took my shot, obviously invested in Chatter, invested in the proof of concepts, investing in the sports, and I've invested in a multitude of companies that I believe in. And the first thing that I look for as an angel investor is a good story, because I want to invest in the people and the individuals that's trying to revolutionize something or change something in a positive way. So shout out to companies like Traderverse, Neural. God, I'm involved in a couple of them, Sports Trade. I invest in people, right? And I have a large portfolio of private companies that I invest in. But again, it's because of the story and the individuals behind those companies is why I believe in them, right? Just like people believe in me with my story and everything like that. It's about inspiring others. And when others inspire me, how can I help you, right? Because I wouldn't be in this position I'm in today if people didn't guide me, mentor me, or push me in the right direction. So I feel like my way of giving back is to do the same thing. Just like with the organizations I'm working with now, Stop Soldier Suicide. I'm an executive team leader there. I've helped many veterans through speaking engagements with them and telling my story. Honor and Courage Foundation, I'm on the advisory board there. I try to help veterans through these organizations and the Simplify Fund. I promised Sergeant Major Bill Squires, another shout out to somebody, actually just to go back a little bit, before Simplify Fund came in to help me, Sergeant Major Bill Squires came to my house and I lived in a townhome and paralyzed. I couldn't go upstairs. I was living on a box spring, a mattress on cinder blocks, and a crib right next to me, which was my son, Mason. That's all I had to my name. He walked in there and he's like, oh, hell no, Marine, I'm going to make sure I do everything I can for you and help you. And don't you ever give up. Don't give up. Because you can look at me and you can see that I was defeated and I wanted to give up. And he's like, don't ever give up. And I never did give up. And there's so many other people that I can call out who helped guide me through all of this. But without my wife behind me, I would definitely not be here. Because if it wasn't for her and my son, I wouldn't be here. Now we have 2 other kids. And, again, life comes at you fast. And I love Batman and stuff like that. So if you ever watch the Dark Knight series, why do we fall? And it's to get back up. And we're all going through life. We're all navigate life. We're all going through hardships. Some might be harder than others. But one thing my dad told me before he passed away was we're all fighting a war, war on mental health. But my battle is different than your battle. But through communication and sharing our stories can help somebody navigate their battle. And then in turn, you would hope that that individual will then pass that information and knowledge to the next individual. So my life's crazy and I could talk about it for hours, but at the end of the day, it's about being a good human being and trying to help and uplift others. And again, I would not be in this position if people didn't uplift me. And because of that, I'm able to now to uplift others.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's probably the craziest story I've ever heard. And you share it with such vulnerability and openness. And thank you for doing that. And it's really wonderful that you're able to take those negative experiences and put it in a vulnerable way so that other people can learn from what you've gone through. It sounds like you've had 20 lifetimes already, between family stuff and military stuff and post-traumatic stress stuff to operation stuff. Any one of those tracks is an overwhelming story by itself. And then you put that in together. You have been through an incredible amount of adversity. It's got to be the most adversity anybody can go through. So it's a crazy story.
But again, through communication, there's somebody else out there and I hope this reaches somebody out there that's going through a hard time, and it helps them realize that, okay, let me put this in perspective here. This guy can go through it and get through that. Why can't I? I still have my 2 legs. I can put my left foot from my other. What's stopping me from creating something or making an impact somehow, some way? So I do hope that, sharing just a small snippet of some of the things that I went through can help inspire somebody out there.
We could talk for hours about your personal situation. It's fascinating and very interesting to get your perspective. Just an issue about being homeless. I live in central London, and when I take my kids to school, we probably pass 10 homeless people. And I've noticed that, there's a range of reasons that people, I haven't spoken to a lot of them, but I'm guessing some have mental illness, some have drug addictions, some are old and may have run out of money. I think there's a lot of different reasons that somebody can become homeless. As somebody that has not had that personal experience, and I've not been in an adverse situation like that, how would you want somebody like me to think about homeless people? What How do you want somebody from the outside to view this situation?
To be honest, most people in that situation don't even want to help because they put themselves a lot. And again, this is my biased opinion. A lot of people put themselves in that situation, for drugs, for instance, because I was so addicted to drugs for years. I put myself in that situation. Nobody put that situation in front of me. I could have chose not to do that many pills. I could have chose not to drink. I could have chose that, but I was trying to escape reality.
I'm sure you have some personal responsibility, but you also had negative life experience, put you in a bad frame of mind. Also, everybody that does drugs had to get the drug from somebody, right?
It's different when they're being fed it with a spoon. Every time you go to the hospital, they're like, here, sir, here's more oxys, here's fentanyl, here's this, here's Xanax, here's this, here's that. I don't take any medications anymore. Why? Because I did not have control and grasp of my life when I was on any medication. Sleeping meds, I'd sleep all day. Anxiety meds, I'd be loopy all day. Pain meds, I'd be a zombie all day. So I just deal with the pain. I mean, I'll smoke some weed for pain and sleep, but it's just like taking Tylenol. It just takes the edge off, but it makes things somewhat tolerable. But for someone, if you're walking down the street and you see a homeless guy, are you okay, sir? Do you need anything? Most of the time, they're going to ask for money. I mean, I do help a lot of homeless people because I understand the situation. I'll go buy them a sandwich, I'll go buy them something. But when it's a homeless veteran, I haven't encountered one myself, a homeless veteran, but there's programs out there for veterans, right? They just don't know it or they don't have a way to find out. So it's more or less trying to educate them like, hey, are you a veteran? All right, let's try to get you help. Let's go contact the nearest veteran service offices. Let's go to the VA hospital. Let's try to find you some help. But a lot of the time people are ashamed and embarrassed that they're homeless, and they kind of just narrow their focus to themselves and they kind of block out the outside world. I mean, I went to New York. I went to the New York Stock Exchange to meet some friends and things like that. And I go to New York, just like when I go to Philly, I'm rolling around. People are just laying in the middle of the sidewalk. And people are just oblivious to it, but they're oblivious to themselves. And it's a very hard question. And it's like, how do you combat homelessness? Honestly, I think, in the United States, instead of pouring tax dollars into endless wars and sending kids to their deaths and sending kids to fight a battle that doesn't need to be battled, where you're going to tell us as a society today that we can't bring all parties to the table and come up with a common ground. Why are we sending kids like when I was a kid to war for something that we were lied to about? I mean, I'm not going to put on my conspiracy hat here, but a lot of the things with the wars in the Middle East doesn't add up. But at the time I was young, I had no place to go. I was young and I was confused. As I'm about to be 36. I kind of have a different perspective on life now. And I kind of analyze things. And when I'm looking at all these wars that we fought, like at Vietnam, why did that war start? Go down that rabbit hole. That wasn't a needed war. The Iraq, weapons of mass destructions, there was no weapons ever found. Now we're potentially on the verge of Iraq or Iran and Israel. Who knows what's going to happen there? But there's a lot of uncertainty. But the military doesn't have to get involved in everything. You should be sending kids to their deaths. Like, as humans, we can't come to the table and find common ground, I think is absurd. And sending kids to their deaths is that's something I'll never understand, because bureaucrats and people in suits can't agree on something. Again, it changed me, seeing death, watching. Like, I had one friend, Matt Fred, love you if you ever hear this, took a bullet from me. I had multiple friends get blown up, lose limbs, die. Why? And then for us just to completely hand over everything to the Taliban blew my mind. Shout out to a friend of mine, Nick Ertz, when the Biden administration, gave up all the military equipment to the Taliban. I cried in my truck. And my friend Nick Ertz, he called me. He said, "You all right?" I'm like, "All this for what, man? All this for what? All this bloodshed for what? Why am I in a wheelchair? Why did all my friends die?" For us just to hand it all over. And one day, I'm a firm believer, we're gonna regret doing that. We're gonna regret doing that. Again, for the audience, I'm not gonna surely speak my mind, but they're animals. And some of the things that I witnessed and endured while I was in Afghanistan makes me sick to my stomach. It's a shame that kids are getting killed right now in Ukraine, Russian, Israeli, Iranian. I don't care who it is. Human life is precious. And to send all these young men and women to fight a war that most of them probably don't even agree with is wrong.
Well, to that end, I think the political winds are very foreign intervention now. So like the political winds have shifted against sending the military into being more isolationist. So I think to that point, Afghanistan plus Iraq has pushed America against foreign interventions.
And then it's like, we're still sending, but here's a kicker. Why are we sending $60 million plus to the Taliban every week or so? Now, that's publicly noted. People talk about it all the time. Why are we funding that? I mean, we're funding Israel. The Obama administration gave Iran billions of dollars. It's like we're funding both sides of the war. Sounds familiar. It's like history repeats itself here.
I had a guy I went to high school with who was a sniper, I think in Iraq. And you have such a different background than my background. Like, how do you want, I don't know if you call us civilians or non-military folk, how do you want us civilians to interact with you guys? Because
just treat us like everybody else. Honestly, I'm one of those guys that when I'm rolling around, I can't stand it when somebody comes and says, thank you for us. I didn't join for the thank yous. I joined because I had no option. And thank you for saying thank you, but you don't need to. I'd rather just go about my everyday and enjoy life while I have it. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't respect the military. There's a lot of people who sacrifice everything for the flag. It doesn't matter the country, if you're from London, England, whatever, America, Canada. I fought with British. I fought with Canadians. I'd rather just go my everyday life and not. Everybody comes up to me, no matter where I go. If I'm in the gym or whatever, were you in the military? Thank you for your service. And I appreciate it, but I don't need to be thanked. I would rather everybody just respect the flag and the people who sacrificed it all for that flag, regardless of the circumstances, if you believe in the cause or not. First responders, police, they're going through a lot right now. And a lot of my guys that I serve with are now, policemen, firefighters, and this shit that they have to deal with on a day-to-day because people don't respect the badge, or if you want to call it that, or they don't respect the uniform. It's hurtful because push comes to shove. Somebody kicking down your door to rob you or do something, you're going to call the cops. You're going to call 911. So why don't you respect them? Why are you disrespecting them? Why are you disrespecting the flag that so many countless, individuals sacrificed everything for? But to answer that question again, I mean, for me personally, I'd rather just treat me like an everyday person. Another pet peeve is like, I hate when people open my door. I always tell people, I was like, I might be disabled, but I'm handy-capable. I'm handicapped, but I'm handy-capable. I actually still hold the door for my kids and my wife. Again, it's just like, I know people come from a good place, but it's just like, I'm truly no different than you, right? Tony is no different from Jason, minus I can't walk, but up here, I'm the same. And inside, we're all the same. There's a lot of, easiest way to put it, left, right, center, whatever. We're, at the end of the day, we all are human, right? We all bleed the same color. We all bleed. I carry myself like I belong everywhere I go. Sometimes, when I go to places like the New York Stock Exchange or talking to some of the partners of the people that I work with, obviously we're not from the same background, but I act like I belong anywhere I go because I don't feel like any individual is above or below me. I think we're all equal. My skill set might be different than yours, but at the end of the day, you have a skill set that I don't have. I have a skill set that you don't have, right? So at the end of the day, I believe everybody's on an even plane, and you just have to carry yourself as such.
I'm sure everybody's different, I guess. And I think I could guess for you, but do guys you served with want to talk about their service, or is everybody very different? Like some want to talk about it, some don't.
Everybody's really different, but mostly everybody that I serve with will talk amongst their peers because we understand, right? I've lost a lot of friends and brothers that I serve with due to suicide. And it's like, if I only knew that they were going through that, right? So it's like, reach out and call somebody, reach out to your brothers that you serve with. I stay steady communication with over 40, 50 guys that I served with. But I served with hundreds of guys, and it's like years will go by and then I'll eventually catch up with them. Like, hey man, I hope you're well. But also depends on the subject of the matter, right? Long story short, like Rob Richards, Mages, Chamberlain, Deptola, they went through a really crazy time. Lieutenant Clement, really crazy time that I won't speak publicly about, but you can Google, the urination of the Taliban back in 2011, the stories that they went through, the shit that they went through, how the Marine Corps just literally threw them out and like tossed them to the side, how Obama and Biden directly gave in order to make an example out of these Marines. But nobody cared about the shit that they went through and why they did what they did. They just cared about a certain instance that had happened. And again, you can Google that and make up your own assumption. But one thing that I do want to do is my final project is when I'm done with the finance stuff, the sports stuff, is to create a documentary series called Right in the Rain Tactical Book, war stories. And I'm going to go talk to all these guys that I serve with, share my story and many others, because I feel like a great way to heal is to tell your story and to communicate. Even it doesn't matter how hard it is. You cry, you do whatever, but to get your story out will actually, and it's helped me greatly. It's truly helped me greatly. Working with the Semper Fi Fund, working with Stop Soldier Suicide, Honor and Courage Foundation, working with the other organizations and telling my story has truly helped my mental health, because I realize I'm not the only one going through this. There's other people that are going through hardships, and then they need some type of maybe guidance, maybe that's the wrong word, or a direction, or just hearing a story can help change somebody.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with vulnerability, strength, honesty, and it's very inspirational to listen to you talk, and I'm sure the people that you can reach are very positively affected by hearing your story, and you give them strength. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can speak with you?
Find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Tony Trzeciak. You'll see a scruffy beard and I'm just arms crossed. But yeah, reach out to me. I'm always willing to connect with anybody. I love learning from individuals, expanding my network. If you've got a good investment opportunity, might be interested in that. You never know. But again, it always starts with a good story. I got to believe in the people who are, building something. So again, kudos to all the companies that have convinced me that they're worth the squeeze. I'm very excited about the future for a multitude of the companies that I invested in. I just like a good story and connecting with others. And it's like, how can I help you? Type of thing. So I'm always open for an introduction. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Before I let you go, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I'm already a father. I'm already a husband. I see myself in a few more years really making an impact in the military veteran community, because that's really where, once all of this stuff starts phasing away, that's going to be my core focus. Plus, I love video games. I actually have another company called Retro Mobile Arcade. I have like a 24-foot trailer, all retrofitted with arcade cabinets, right? I have like over 30,000 video games in there. And I work with, local vendors, local communities, fire department, first responders. You can see all this stuff. I put it online. I offer my services for free, and I bring kids and families in for a very low cost to have fun, right? Because what's better than watching smiles on kids' faces with their parents while they're reliving nostalgic games like Street Fighter and X-Men or whatever it may be. I just want to make a positive impact, not just on my children, but other children, because they're our future. And if you're a positive light on a young person's life, they can make a great impact in the future or change something or cure cancer. You never know, but you have to be a positive role model on these kids, because again, they're our future. And then look at the situations that I went through as a kid, and I didn't have that positive impact in my life. I had nothing but negativity, and I had to climb out of that. I want to make sure that my children never go through that. Any kid that is around me doesn't have to go through that, and they know that they can come to me or my wife or anybody in my family for advice or guidance. So I hope that helps. All right, answers your question.
Thanks so much for stopping by, Tony, and wish you all the best with all of your efforts. It's very inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jason. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.